It's preparing to live stream the meeting. All right, I think we are live. Go ahead.
We're live. All right. I am Tony with the Adult Learning Department, and I have my cohorts here, Miss Elizabeth Jones and Janelle, and we are going to talk about where you were when things happened. So if you had to pick the single biggest historical event of your life, what day would you choose? For older generations, we may be looking at December 7th in 1941, June 4th, 1944, April 12th, 1945, perhaps, or April 15th, 1947. The 40s had a lot going on. Or does February 6th, 1952 mean anything to you? Or the better known date of June 2nd, 1953? There's always the question, were you around for October 4th of 1957? Or as my parents remember, November 22nd, 1963 stands out as very important. For others, you may be looking at April 4th, 1968, or even July 20th, 1969.
I hope everyone's writing those dates down and like,
I know,
seriously.
figure out what happened.
And then Googling.
Don't worry. If you don't remember them, you're probably not old enough to know. In the 70s, there was a large technology boom, so there may have been a date there that changed your life. But for the three of us, we don't remember any of those dates. Our important dates began in the 80s. So we're going to talk about where we were when.
Perfect. So yes, absolutely true. I think most of us have our biggest memories of something that happened during our time in more of the 80s and 90s. And so the first one that is probably one of my biggest memories is when the Challenger broke apart on January 28th of 1986 on live TV. And I was in 4th grade, and they had brought our school actually very forward, as much like the schools are today. We had pods. And so all the 4th and 5th graders were in like this one area. So they brought us all over to one side of the room. And this is 86, right? So they wheel in all the little, we just had little TVs back then on push carts, but they wheeled in all the ones that they had and plugged it in. And we all of us, 4th and 5th graders, were sitting there watching it. And what I remember that was so significant is when it blew up, I was a 4th grade. I didn't know what was happening because things happen like the when they shoot it drops part of it anyway. So that already
There's
so
fire.
I was like, I didn't know until the teachers. And what I remember most is seeing our teachers just this look of horror on their faces. And I remember knowing something was wrong because of the way they looked and not understanding really what it was. And they all just came in, they shut the TVs off, and then parents were called. Everybody left. Our school, like everybody left. And They never told us. And I think that was the hardest part, is we knew something terrible had happened. And we all had to wait until our parents picked us up and told us what it was. They didn't even talk about it in school.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a very weird emotional experience for me.
Yeah, that would be scary, especially since you knew something was wrong, right?
Yeah.
But you were too young to really process or understand what was
didn't
wrong.
Make sense,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I was only in kindergarten then, and I don't have a recollection of that event. Like, I know that a lot of people my age watched it, like even in the kindergarten level, because it was such a cool thing, right, to be able to watch live on TV. But I don't remember it. So I don't know if we did, or if I've just, it just has escaped. It didn't get filed here in my memory box, something like that. But either way, like, that's for our generation, the 80s babies, the late 70s, early 80 babies. That's something that a lot of us remember happening. The next thing on the list is the fall of the Berlin Wall on November 9th, 1989, bringing an end to the Cold War. So for those of you who know your history, the Berlin Wall was between East Germany and West Germany. And it was things weren't good. It was a very contentious time. Now with this one, we talked about this and we debated keeping it on the list, but none of us have a really firm recollection of this. Like as adults, we know, and we know the significance of it, but we were also young that this wasn't something that we paid attention to because it was political. It was not within our country, you know, all of those things. So being, you know, I was 9 at the time. Tony, you would have been what, like 5? 6, and
6.
Janelle, you would have been a young teenager at the time. Like that's not something that would have
global
captured.
politics wasn't really on my radar
list.
you know.
Right, exactly. So
I do remember hearing
to
about
the next. Oh yeah, I remember hearing about it too,
but
and we talked about it like maybe in school a little bit, but it wasn't like big news in our world at the time. The next one on the list though is big thing. So this was, I think, was 1995, right? Didn't we say it was 1995? This one, Tony. This is the O.J. Simpson trial, where he was accused and later acquitted of murdering Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman. So I was in about 9th grade at the time, and I remember trying to convince our English teacher to bring those TVs in, similar to Janelle mentioned, you know, on the push carts, because apparently not a lot changed TV wise between 86 and 95.
Nope.
But he wouldn't do it. He had his lesson for the day, so he wouldn't do it. And of course, we all found about it later. I think we more remember, and I don't know if you guys remember this as much, but the car chase with the white Bronco, because that was all over TV and we were like glued to the TV watching that. So O.J. Simpson is big. That whole thing was pretty big.
I'm pretty mad at my mom for making me go to bed and not letting me watch the end. Not gonna lie.
Nope. So the next one, Tony.
So the next one, not many people are going to remember it, but the TWA Flight 800 crash 12 minutes after takeoff from JFK on July 17th of 1996. At the time, it was the second deadliest U.S. aviation crash. It has since had one higher, so it's now 3rd on the list. But it happened in the middle of our county fair. It had 17 students and 4 chaperones from the neighboring town on it. So our county fair, if you can imagine, was silent. I don't know if you've ever been to a county fair that was silent, but there was nothing. And it was really tough. You watched the friends, the family, because they were at the fair. And their expressions and the aftermath was just terrible. And I remember it was silence. And even now on the anniversary, they still do a moment of silence every year for them. And it's been 26 years coming up this year. But yes, the silence was the most impactful. And the fact that 12 hours before, I was hanging out with the brother of one of the passengers on the plane. So it was really rough for all of us.
It hit close to home for you, for sure.
Very close. There are monuments and scholarships and everything. And then months later, I found out my cousin was supposed to be on the plane, but decided not to go on the trip. So very close all around. But there was a huge conspiracy that followed, which may have made it a bigger event than it was. I do remember
that, actually.
There's always a conspiracy.
There was a huge conspiracy about what actually caused the crash, which made it more impactful than the 230 people. But it was a big one. Very big.
For sure.
Well, and then a little over a year later, this is actually my memory from later. Princess Diana being killed in the car crash in Paris on August 31st of 1997. I believe I was asleep when it actually happened, but my sister was on air DJ at a radio station. She was the one that had to announce it live on air. And so that was a huge thing for her. The compliments that she got from the daily DJs just made her day, because not that
Mhm.
she was happy about the news, but the fact that they felt her professionalism in handling it was so great. And so
Right.
it wasn't so much the crash and the events, but it was how it impacted her and her decisions on what she ended up doing in life that really made that a big memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. I was never, excuse me, I was never until recently much of the, royal family follower like people are today.
Mhm.
But I do remember all of the drama around Princess Diana and, all that. And I remember the crash, and I especially remember that all the talk about how that paparazzi, because at that time it was really just, she was one of the first ones, that was really
Mhm.
hounded and harassed to death, according to some, by
Mhm.
paparazzi. And I remember I was at that age, because that would have been, what year was that?
97.
97.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was 22, I don't know, somewhere around there. And so, I was paying more attention to, celebrities and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I remember is that accident happening, and the trial and the trauma around the paparazzi. And that still today, so many people talk about, she was kind of the one that
Mhm.
led that, excuse me, led that drive against, this is dangerous.
Mhm.
And,
Right.
we see it now all the time. I mean, I can think of so many times when celebrities have been run off the road or gotten in an accident or harassed to the point of something happening, not necessarily death,
Right.
but because they're just attacked. And that didn't happen in the 80s even. I mean,
Nope.
that just, it's definitely much more of a late 90s into the 2000s that these paparazzi
Right.
become.
Mhm.
Right. As the internet became more a thing, right? And you can get
Yeah.
your stories out quick
Yeah.
and
Right
all of that.
away.
Like, yeah.
Hmm.
So the next one on the list is actually one that we all have very, very strong memories of. And some of our maybe parents for sure, maybe some of our adult students might, maybe not so many students from a personal perspective, but the attack on September 11th, 2001. I think that's probably for me one of those defining moments, right? Like we talked with those older generations, Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, right? Like that would have been a defining moment for that group. This one is a defining moment for our age, because it really changed our world
Yeah.
Mhm.
dramatically in an instant. So I was in college at the time, so I would have been 20-ish, 19, 20, 21, probably 20. Anyway, I was in a health class, an 8 a.m. health class, which I never signed up for 8 a.m. classes, but
Yeah.
I'd have this 8 a.m. health class. And as I walked out of class, like I saw on the TV, because I think 8 a.m. classes were like an hour and 10 minutes or something like that. So I walked out of class and saw the TV playing in the lobby of the gymnasium where health class was held. And I saw what was going on. And it didn't really strike me too much at that moment until I got back to my dorm room and put the TV on, and then saw the second plane hit on live TV. And that's when things just, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you, like it just that fear. Like I was in northeastern Pennsylvania, which is where I live now. I was at Mansfield University where I attended college, and New York City was 3 hours away. So, it was close. It was a beautiful day, crystal blue skies, just beautiful skies that day. And everybody was looking up, because for the first time in, I mean, literally forever since the first planes had taken off, there were no planes overhead because they they brought all the planes down. So so that's my memory, and it's stuck. It's not going anywhere ever, I think.
Yeah, it is. Though, you're absolutely right. It was a defining moment in our lives. It changed everything, much like the pandemic is again.
Yes.
But I mean, the way we traveled, the way we looked at the world, everything changed. For me, it was a really a very traumatic experience. I was 26 and I was 31 weeks pregnant, and I had been in the hospital September 10th, that night. I was released from the hospital at 3:30 in the morning on September 11th to go sit on bed rest. And so it was our first house. We had this little 1.5 story cottage. And so our bedroom was like an attic. So it was kind of confined. I don't know, it was like a prison. I don't know, maybe I felt that way, but dark and, and all I had was TV. And so like I said, got home at 3:30 on bed rest. I think I must have gotten a call or something after the first one, but same then I turned on the TV and I watched the second one, and then all the stuff that was happening. And of course, I'm a wee bit emotional, 31 weeks pregnant on bed rest. And so I finally said, I can't see this anymore. And I started clicking through all the channels. And I remember when I got to MTV, you young kids probably don't even know what that is, but it used to have like shows, like funny shows and music videos. And it was not a serious channel at all. It's a joke channel. It was music and fun. And I got to MTV and they had the same, everyone was streaming the same coverage. And I shut the TV off and I just bawled. And all I could think was, how am I bringing a child into this world? I don't know what this world is going to look like. I don't know who else is, it was just this pure panic of how can I bring a child into this world? And then for years, that child obviously was born just not that long later. And for every year on September 11th, I would write and I would talk about how as she got older, I learned that how I bring a child into this world is I'm trying to raise the best child that I can to help our world. And as she grew, things change, like for, and I won't get into all that came after September 11th, but our world, our society, our country has gone through so many things. And each time I would just remind myself that I'm raising this amazing kid who's going to do good things in the world. And this doesn't have to be her story. Because for the first while, that's all I felt. I was just so anxious. Like she was, because they call them the, the September 11th babies, the ones that were born kind of right during that time, and their whole life, that's all it's been. They were born into this crazy time period.
Crazy time, yeah.
And it really helped me. And over the years, I became much more like, I'm glad that I got to have a baby. But at that moment, life changing. I just thought, what am I doing? I am ill-equipped. It's my first child. I'm 26 years old. And I'm like, I should not be bringing a child in this world. I don't know what I'm doing. What's happening? Yeah.
Right.
See, I was barely an adult, 18, freshman year of college, in calculus class with a professor from Queens. So his life was pretty rough for the next few weeks as well. But got back to the dorm room. TVs, every room had the TV on. Immediately called my father because he worked in and out of the city. Wasn't sure where he was that particular day because I'm in college. I'm not talking to my dad every day. Thankfully, he was not in the city. One of my classmates, however, her father worked in the World Trade Centers, longest 3 hours of her life waiting to hear from him. Thankfully, he was fine. He finally got a call into the college to get the message to her because phone lines were a mess. But it was. And then, of course, my thoughts immediately go to my brother who's stationed in, Japan. In the U.S. Navy. So immediate thoughts are, oh no, what's going to happen to him? And he's fine too. But, it was panic for everybody. And, 18, barely an adult, freshman in college, like, what is going on?
I was,
Very,
so
very
you can
rough.
all tell probably just from our descriptions of these, how much of a defining moment.
Because that's what our minds recall when we think of big events. But really, a lot of I knew what I was going to say here. We all have different memories, but I think for a lot of us, our personal ones, the ones that we remember the most personally, are actually the happy ones, the great joys in our life. When we had children, I did have Claire, a few weeks after September 11th, and I'll tell you what, I didn't think about any of that the day I had her. I was nothing. I mean, it was the best day of my life. Just
Right.
2 months or whatever after the worst day of my life. It was the best day of my life, and still to this day is the best thing to my life, just because she was the first one. Sorry, girls. It was all great, but the first one, but I mean,
they're special.
we all have dates, and we're all going to have personal memories, and like even just the three of us, not all of us have the same memories of these specific events. And our students all have different memories and different versions, and different countries that have different major events. And so yeah, I think that it's just fun to kind of look back on those and chat together about how we remember different things. And hopefully you guys related a little bit to some of the ones that we remember, and you may have completely different experiences, and that's okay. It's kind of fun to see.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, ladies. And we hope you found this interesting. Leave a comment. Let us know what your defining moment is, the date that comes to mind in your mind. And we will see you again in another couple weeks from the Adult Learning Team. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.